Coming up on today's Locked On Senators, there's been a lot of smoke around the Senators ownership situation, and one or more groups reportedly want an NHL legend to join them as head coach.
And we round out the top 5 of our NHL Draft Profiles with Matvei Michkov and Will Smith.
Based on talent, these guys could be even higher. Why aren't they? We'll get into that and more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 813 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Please like and subscribe wherever you download your podcast. We're also available on YouTube. Today is Monday, June 5th, and Pilsy, Patrick Waugh just won the Memorial Cup for the second time in his coaching career, and I say that for absolutely no reason at all attached to the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, just randomly throwing that out there as a stat. Ross, we know Pierre Dorion loves winners, so that's something good that Patrick Waugh can add to his resume. And I mean, hey, winning the Mem Cup is a big deal, especially as a coach. Like, not only do you have to have a great regular season, then you have to have a great playoffs, then you have to have a great tournament. Like, it's tough to keep your team engaged for that long of a season. So congrats to Patrick Waugh and his team on winning the Meb Cup.
More than 60 teams in the Canadian Hockey League.
Yeah.
It all comes down to one. And they didn't just win. They absolutely dominated. In the Quebec League playoffs, they went 16-3 and then went 3-1 through the regular part of the Memorial Cup, right to the finals. 4-1 is the record there. Now, why does this matter for the Ottawa Senators? Darren Dreger last week reported that at least one of the groups wants to bring in Patrick Waugh as the Senators head coach. Now, first thing that comes to interest is, hey, doesn't the GM hire the head coach? But if a new owner's coming in, they want a shiny toy. They're going to get what they want, at least if they can throw enough money at it. However, it is also interesting to note, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, we pulled up the list of 7 candidates that were leaked out that interviewed for this head coaching spot when DJ Smith ultimately got it in 2019. And Patrick Waugh was one of the 7 candidates. So he and Pierre Dorion have at least sat down and had a discussion about the Ottawa Senators. Now, it's a different team. It's a different time in the franchise, but I did find that interesting that there is a bit of a connection there, that he interviewed for the job when it was last available.
Yeah, and I think Patrick Waugh would be a great idea to coach the Ottawa Senators. Now, as a precursor, DJ Smith is the coach of the Ottawa Senators. He is signed to continue to be the coach of the Ottawa Senators. But with ownership speculation, you never know what's going to happen. That's why we're having this conversation. Now, moving forward, I mean, Patrick Waugh, Francophone, you love to see that in Ottawa. A lot of French-speaking guys on the team. And he's someone that not only has incredible experience as a player, obviously he's one of the greatest goalies to ever live, but also he's been coaching for a very long time. And when he coached in the NHL in Colorado, albeit a short stint, he had success. So, and I think he wasn't fired or let go or whatever the terminology is because of performance. I think it was more of a,
struggle.
Yeah, power struggle, him and Joe Sakic there in Colorado. So I don't think it was a reflection of his coaching performance. So I really think he's a guy that could help this team get to where they need to go, not only through experiences of his own, but through his own passion. Like, you see, this guy is a fiery head coach. And I think some people look at that as a negative, but also I think you got to have that fire in you to be a head coach. It's not an easy job. And I think the Patrick Waugh we're looking at now is very different than the Patrick Waugh that was coaching the Colorado Avalanche. How many years ago was that? It was a long time ago. So I think that's something that needs to be known too, is that I'm sure he's done a lot of growing and changing in that time.
Yeah, I would really kind of highlight that last point, that this isn't the the Patrick Waugh. I don't think he's going to come in and start shaking the glass and trying to fight the coach on the other bench like he did in his first ever game behind an NHL bench.
Yeah.
This guy had his passion levels off the charts. And there were some things coming out that maybe a certain player or two didn't have a great experience with him in junior. A specific goalie, Louis Domingue, had some comments for him. That was 2014, right? That was when he was just coming into his first NHL job, and that fire was still there. Now, look at the players, the way they embraced him. And yes, I understand it's easier to be humble and kind of open and happy when you're on top.
Yes.
Someone said, hey, let's see that Patrick Waugh after a 7-game losing streak in November, which hopefully, if there is a new coach, that comes with the caveat that November is a great month for the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah.
But all that aside, I think that the growth is what we have to focus on with Patrick Waugh. This guy has been around junior players now again, and it's just a different era of coaching. And these kids coming up, they need to be coached different. You always hear the former players talk about how much the game's changed. And even guys like Marty St. Louis, I just heard an interview with him last week where he talked about, man, from when I was a player, now I'm coaching individuals. Before it was all about team. But now it's like, how can I get the most out of each individual to benefit the team? So just that whole structure has changed. And I loved his answer. Someone asked Patrick Waugh last night. We tweeted out at Sens Central, hey, like, do you want to drink anything or eat anything? And he just deflected completely. He said, this is the players' moment. They've earned it. They've done this. They've done that. Now, Dine Sports caught a nice comment as well. When Patrick Waugh was talking about the structure of his team, he says, we don't want to be known as a defensive team, but we want to play hard defensively. You know what I mean? Like you need to be aware on that side of the puck, but they don't want to sacrifice offense for defense. So don't think because an old goalie's coming in that we're going to play the 1-2-2 trap and just shut things down in the neutral zone and bore you to death, put you to sleep like the old Devils used to do. Yeah. But man, this guy, the resume speaks for itself, right? Like you look at his player status, and I didn't know this. You know, he's the only 3-time Conn Smythe winner in NHL history.
Wow. I mean, it makes sense. I didn't realize he won 3. I knew he had 2, but yeah, 3 is incredible. Like to even go to the finals 3 times is a pretty good feat right there. But to be the best player of the entire playoffs 3 times, incredible.
Yes, and he also is the youngest ever Conn Smythe winner at 20 years old, 4-time Stanley Cup champion, 3-time Vezina Trophy winner, 3-time William Jennings winner. Now he's a 2-time Memorial Cup champion. He also won a Jack Adams his first year in the NHL coaching as that. And people were mentioning too, to reply to my tweet, that he also won a Calder Cup as well in the AHL before that. So you look at the resume as a player, even the last, as I mentioned, as a coach, he's got a .617 winning percentage in the QMJHL. Now, initially, I was like, oh, wow, he's made the playoffs 13 out of 15 years as a head coach in the Q. And our boys out in Halifax told us, the Forehand family told us, you know that 16 out of 18 teams in the Q make the playoffs.
True. Yeah.
Maybe that's not the flex that we thought it was, but hey, this is a team that battled through adversity. You talk about how to deal with adversity. This team lost in the QMJHL final last year. It would have been easy to, feel sorry for yourselves. They came out this year and said, no, we're going to win the whole damn thing. So look, we've both been on record that if DJ Smith is back, we kind of trust the growth of what he needs to do. Very short leash. I said he's not coming to Sweden in mid-November unless that record is above 500. That's about a 10-game sample size, you got to think. Schedule coming soon. Yep. But if they were to replace DJ Smith, they could do a lot worse than Patrick Waugh.
Agreed. And that's the thing. And I think sometimes hockey fans are sick of, recycled coaches and, the old boys club and things like that. But I think what Patrick Waugh's done here is he's had to face humility. He was a Jack Adams winner as a coach and then out of the league shortly after. Like you mentioned, lost in the Q finals and now bounced back. So I really think that he's come around to be able to, I don't want to say do better this time because he did great in his first stint there, but
it got worse and worse.
That's the thing. I think he's going to have learned from that. And I think he makes so much sense in Ottawa. And I feel like this is a group of players that could really work with Patrick Waugh's style.
Yes. And selfishly, Patrick Waugh and Locked On Senators would have a nice ring to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Two rings plugged in my ears.
There you go. Yeah, as a goalie-friendly show. I mean, he's no Dominic Hasek. Let's be real here, but he's pretty good.
And I've got a signed Patty Waugh jersey in the closet. And honestly, I got it as a gift. And you always are just so thankful for great gifts like that. But I didn't really like him that much as a player. But if he's head coach, now I'm all in. And that's why I've been keeping it in the closet, right?
There you go.
No,
there
but Patrick Waugh, let us know what you think. Like, a lot of people were thinking, he's a little bit too intense. But, man, I just feel like he's the kind of coach who's going to demand results from this group.
And I feel like him and Claude Giroux would have a really great connection. Like, don't they seem like kind of similar type players? Like Claude a little bit more reserved in his intense passion, but I think they would have a good relationship.
And Patty Waugh, king of the playoff beard. You see this guy? If they're casting the next Santa Claus movie, this guy's lead role.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh man.
That's awesome. So, yeah, let us know in the comments. We're curious because there is a divisiveness on this subject. Even people who are, like, done with DJ Smith are like, no, not Patrick Waugh. And it's like, how, like, I don't know, just the name recognition alone, I think, would put Ottawa on the map. Now, caveat, I think that as a Memorial Cup champion with the resume we just discussed, he's going to be a very wanted man this offseason. Yeah. And where there's an open job? New York Rangers. You know who the New York Rangers general manager is? A man who won a couple Stanley Cups with Patrick Waugh, and that's Chris Drury.
Yep.
So I don't know if that connection is strong or not, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him at Madison Square Garden next year.
Well, Joe Sakic also won a couple cups with Patrick Waugh, and that didn't work out great.
So. Oh, but I mean, they hired him.
Yeah, they also fired him.
Yes. Now, the X factor in all this as well is how much autonomy does Patrick Waugh want? Because right now, I mean, he's in such a comfy position. I know it's junior hockey, but he's also the GM. He runs the show there.
Oh, yeah. And it's not like he's hurting for money either, so he's not looking for a cash grab. And I think
they average 17,000 fans this playoffs.
Yeah, it's a reason why you don't hear too many people going crazy that Quebec doesn't have a team now, because they're filling an NHL arena as it is. So that's definitely it. And yeah, he could command any price point he wants as a coach. And the Ottawa Senators historically have not paid their coaches very well.
They've got bird dogs deep pockets now, though, coming if this ownership saga never ends. The latest, Gary Bettman said maybe in the next couple weeks, which, I mean, first reported by Locked On Senators, because Pierre Dorion told us a couple weeks. We just kind of like laughed it off, ha. But I really think this is going to come to a standstill. And who knows what's next. But the worst thing would be, and we've already seen a couple coaching hirings, like if they are going to go that direction, they're really having themselves shot in the foot here the longer that everything is drawn out. Because I know they're going to get the keys in September, but let's be honest, if they're the preferred bidder and everyone knows it's going to get done, I'm sure they'll be able to make a few phone calls and get a few things done to set themselves up for next season. That's just my thought. I'm not confident in saying that that's an exact point, but I would assume and hope that if you're making $1 billion purchase, that maybe you could put some pieces in play that you want there immediately before, the ink's dry on the contract. So we will update you when Senators ownership news comes. We'll also be here all week. Draft rankings, though, are here. Corey Pronman's full list is out. Chris Peters' full final list is out. Same with Scott Wheeler. His just came out today. Where do they have the upcoming players? Spoiler alert, one of them has one of the upcoming players we're about to profile at number 2.
Ooh.
But if you missed our top 3, we've already done it. You can check them out individually on YouTube or go listen to last week's Locked On Senators. It's draft month here, so let's get into it. You're listening to Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Everyone knows all about eBay, but did you know it's the perfect spot to get parts for your car? For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit, and it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, go to eBay Motors. With eBay's guaranteed fit, you can find every part you need and make sure that it fits the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check so you know your part will fit or you get your money back. It's simple, because just like sports, confidence is the name of the game. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. Get the right parts, get the right fit, and get the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Check out eBay Motors today.
Today's episode is also brought to you by my happy place. It's Shawarma Palace. You know how much I love Shawarma Palace. It's Ottawa's #1 spot for shawarma since 1997. I don't know what I would have done growing up without Shawarma Palace, and thank God I never had to realize, and they have not gone anywhere. Actually, au contraire, mon ami, Shawarma Palace has now expanded to 7 different locations all over Ottawa. You're never too far away from a Shawarma Palace. It's great people. It's fuel filling, as we said last week, because Shawarma Palace gives you great portion size, the freshest ingredients, and Shawarma Palace also has something for you guys and girls who don't want to leave the house. You can go to Uber Eats exclusively through there and order Shawarma Palace. So eat like a royal tonight at Shawarma Palace, whether you're getting a platter like me, couple extra leftovers in there, or if you want to be like Pilsy, go with the chicken shawarma wrap. But they have tons of great specials. Go check them out at Shawarma Palace and visit them online, Shawarma Palace Ottawa on Instagram. Go eat like a royal. Go eat at Shawarma Palace. And when you do, let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. All right, Pilsy. I'm already craving Shawarma Palace. We're going in about 4 weeks.
Yep.
I will have my hands full with Shawarma Palace.
I'm excited to get back to Ottawa. The
You're
middle
home away
of
from home.
yeah, exactly. My home away from home. The middle of the summer is going to be great.
When's the last time you went to Ottawa in the summer? Have you ever?
I don't think I ever have, honestly. I did a Montreal trip in the summer, and I think I comboed Ottawa with it. This is like, we're going back like 10 years, though, so it's been a while.
Yeah, like, we know snowbirds go to Florida. You go to Ottawa.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Wait, we got Dev Camp coverage coming on Locked On Senators. We're hopefully going to get some sit-down interviews with a bunch of different members of the Senators organization. So that's all coming up. So check it out and wait for that here on Locked On Senators on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. All right, coming in at number 4 on our 2023 NHL Draft Rankings. Could he be more talented than his draft ranking puts him at? It's Matvei Michkov out of the KHL with Sochi. Now, he was loaned to Sochi from CSKA Moscow. They were playing him as other young prospects in the KHL. The Daniel Yurov from last year, where he played 20 games but sat on the bench and didn't play for 19 of them. But with Matvei Michkov, all he needed to do, shocker, was play games to put up points.
Yeah, I mean, that it's hard to put up points if you're not playing games. The age-old problem, Ross. But with the Michkov, I mean, this guy is so goddamn talented. Like, I honestly think, Ross, in my rankings, he's number 2. And we'll get to it. There's one caveat to Michkov that will slide him down teams' lists in a mock draft style setting. But overall, he's just so skilled. He's able to do it all. And the term I find most people using for Michkov, Ross, David St. Louis from EP used it, Corey Pronman used this term, is he is a finisher. This guy is able to get the puck into dangerous areas and finish. And like most Russians, Ross, he plays on his off wing. He's a left shot playing only on the right wing. And he's got a lethal shot. And he may be a little selfish in the goal scoring aspect, tunnel vision, being like, I'm going to the net and I'm shooting this puck. But when you score and when you're talented like Michkov, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all. And with Sochi, where he played the final part of the season, he was able to show that skill that we had seen at younger age groups against men at 17 years old. He had 9 goals, 11 assists, good for 20 points in 27 games, had 14 penalty minutes as well. Pilsy, that bottom ticker, if you're watching on YouTube, is the reason why he won't be a top 3 pick.
It's the reason why he probably won't be a top 3 pick, because he is signed in the KHL for 3 more years. Now, that can be a positive and a negative. Some of these teams that are in the top 5, they don't want to be good right now. So if you have a little future asset that's going to come in 3 years, and you've drafted and developed players, and you can just put them right into your lineup, similar to Kirill Kaprizov, that can be a huge benefit. But a lot of these teams, their fan bases would not be too happy if you get a top 5 pick and you're not going to see anything from him for the next couple of years. And Ross, I say see anything from him because it's very hard to get any video of any KHL players. Most of Michkov's video analysis is done from tournament games. So it's exciting, but also you got to be patient.
The mythical creature, the new one, Matvei Michkov. Yeah, he's so smooth. And you mentioned Kirill Kaprizov, who put up 27 goals and 51 points in 55 games. But right, he came over as a 23-year-old. Yeah, 23. Yep. Man, Michkov coming over at 21. Like, where can I put money on him to win the Calder already for that year?
For real. Yeah, good call at FanDuel.com. Hopefully we'll be right on that.
He is so nasty. I'd say he probably has to put a little more build on. He's 172 pounds, but some outlets have him at 148. So who knows? Put him somewhere in the middle there. I don't know if he's attending the scouting combine. I wouldn't be surprised if he is. I mean, top 5 pick. It would be pretty good to get him in the mix with the other prospects here. And by next week, we'll update as we go along here with the height, weight, because they'll all kind of put their vitals in and all that. But you mentioned that the left shot, and as a finisher, we see that in Ottawa with Alex DeBrincat. Like, it just makes it that much quicker to get your one-timer off and get yourself into shooting areas. And this guy, like, his breakaway moves, like, he's more than just a finisher on, like, the sense of, you know, you think of finishers, guys who just kind of stand in that Ovechkin spot to kind of bring it back to the Russian angle there. But no, this guy can finish around the net. He can finish out with distance. He's got a lethal shot. He can dangle. And that's why Scott Wheeler has him at number 2. That's the high of anyone on our ranking board. We have 7 different entities that we use. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see them all right now. Bob McKenzie has him ranked 5th. And Bob McKenzie's is always interesting because that's based off of scouts. That's like, hey, that's more so where would you take this guy? Whereas the others are more of a rankings where they see the finished product where they think he's going to be. Craig Button has him at 4th. Corey Prodman has him at 3rd. Rachel Dory has him at 3rd. Chris Peters and Elite Prospects all have him at 4th. That's good for an average of 3.6, which actually ties him with Leo Carlson, who we have at 3rd. So we pretty much have a coin flip at number 3. But again, you probably don't think that with the 3-year wait period, some of these GMs, Magic Johnson, Verbal Meme, are going to be like, I ain't going to be here when this guy is actually able to contribute to the team.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But Ross, when he gets here, I mean, I would say Michkov's top skill for me is his stick handling. Like, I watched David St. Louis from Elite Prospects does a film room study on a lot of these guys. I highly recommend watching all of those. His on Michkov was great. And just watching him he does that inside out move through defenders so often. Like, he has so much confidence with that. And he can pull off any move. He can do the lacrosse goal. And he uses these moves to make up for his lack of speed. He's not the fastest guy out there, but he's so creative. He doesn't need to blow by you. He'll just deep through you. And when you watch him on the power play, he's so patient. And defenders are trying to figure him out. And he just pulls so many dipsy doodle moves around him. It drives them crazy. And then, so what happens is one defender will go on him. He'll pull a move. Then another defender will go on him. He'll pull a move. And then both those defenders are like, screw this. Let's both attack him. And then when they both come towards him, he just passes it off to a teammate that's now wide open. So I think Michkov's experience in the KHL is like, it's a really good development league if you want a player that can pop right into the NHL. Like, if you don't want to waste time in the AHL, or you want a guy that has experience playing up against men, if you can have years of KHL experience, that makes the transition to the NHL much easier, in my opinion. So there's so much value here. It's just, it's 3 years. You got to wait 3 years for this. And in my opinion, Ross, I think it's worth it. I think the team that does get him 10 years from now, we're going to be laughing that other teams passed him up because they had to wait 3 years, when you can get generational talent for a long time if you make this decision.
And I love this from Chris Peters with Flow Hockey. While Bedard has the best shot in the draft, Michkov may have the best understanding of how to score. He outthinks goalies and opposing defenses and is always in an attack position in the offensive zone. He's a weapon. If you have to kind of sum it, he's a weapon. He's going to score, he's going to beat you, and he's going to do it 100 different ways. What are the scouts saying? I love this from Scott Wheeler as well with The Athletic. Michkov is the best Russian prospect since Alex Ovechkin and Evgeny Malkin back in 2004. On talent, upside, and pedigree, his game checks all 3 boxes. Peters continues by saying he's an offensive genius who has among the best hockey sense in this class. Michkov was long believed to be the biggest threat to Bedard for number 1. Like, that's how good this kid is. Pilsy, where do you think is the perfect landing spot in the top 10, let's say? Because if he gets past the top 5, there will be some GMs who are ridiculed online, if not fired, in the years to come when Michkov does come over. Where do you see the perfect landing spot for Matvei Michkov?
Yeah, if he doesn't get picked in the top 5, Ross, I can even see some GMs trading up. Like, I could see that happen. I'm not saying this is going to happen or it's likely, but in my mind, I really see the Arizona Coyotes selecting Michkov because right now, their future is up in the air big time.
They also have 2 top 15 picks, right? They have Ottawa's pick at 12.
Exactly. And they have talented guys like Gunther, Cooley. There's so many, or wait, is it Cooley there or Geeky?
No,
yeah.
Both.
Okay. Oh, both. Okay. I was like, is it one of those guys or the other? But it's both. So that makes sense. And yeah, then you got Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz, like so much talent there. But the thing is, this team's not really interested in being good right now. And having a flashy top prospect play at Mullet Arena when, let's be honest, you're like, this team's moving to Salt Lake City soon. So why not, if you're the franchise, have a shiny toy to be like, hey, Salt Lake City, you want us, and you're going to most like, it seems that's where this is going to go. By the time we're ready to move there, we can just plop an NHL-ready generational talent player onto this roster. So I think they're the team that it makes most sense that 3-year wait is not an issue at all. If anything, I'll say that's a positive.
I'm thinking that the San Jose Sharks might go out with a big swing. Now, Locked On Sharks, JD does some great draft coverage as well, and I think he's shown that Mike Greer's had some statements in the media where I think it's kind of leaning towards the fact that they wouldn't take the risk on that.
Yeah.
But I think that would be such a good fit for him, right? Because they have those bad contracts kind of still on the books, a few of them. I know they got rid of a couple as well, but it would almost be the perfect time for them to be transitioning to be a better team at that point, because they're still in the selling off assets phase of their rebuild. Whereas when they come back, then all of a sudden, boop, plop them in. And Matvei Michkov, I think he's going to be a consistent 40-goal guy in the National Hockey League, and that might even be underselling him. Could be a consistent 100-point guy realistically with the way that he sniffs the net and tries to get pucks in. So I'm really confident that whichever team takes the swing is going to hit an eventual home run with Matvei Michkov. All right, coming up next, we've got our Will Smith profile. Keep it locked on Senators wherever you download your podcasts. All right, Pilsy. +1 for me. Different music. First time in like a week.
That's awesome. Good for you, buddy.
Reminder, follow the show on Twitter at Sens Central. Follow it on Instagram, lockedon.senators. If you missed it last week, Pierre Dorion joined Locked On Senators and then gave us a nice little tire pump on TSN 1200 the next day. So really appreciate Pierre Dorion for that. Sens PR team for making that happen. Interview season will be back in August and late July. But right now, it's all draft all month here on Locked On Senators. And with that, coming in at number 5 on our 2023 NHL draft rankings, it's the Fresh Prince of Massachusetts. It's Will Smith, who is going to Boston College next year in Pilsy, not before he put up point after point after point after point after point with the U.S. national team development program.
Yeah, this kid put up big numbies last year with the U.S. team. I mean, 50 games played, 61 goals. Oh, wait, do I have that flipped, actually?
You have it at 60 games.
Yeah, I have it flipped. Okay. 60 games played, 51 goals, 76 assists for 127 points. This kid is really good. Like, there's no denying it, and he deserves to be in the conversation in that top 5. And Ross, we'll get to it later, but we noticed there's a considerable drop-off between where scouts rank the top 5 players, and then the drop off after that. It's very clear to most people that the top 5 is set. Now, where they'll end up can change, or depending on your opinion, you'll have different guys in different spots. But this is a centerman. He's a right shot. He's got good size at 6 feet, 181 pounds, and he's committed to Boston College next year. I mean, this guy has so many makings of just a classic American great prospect.
It's so smooth watching him play. You look at all the highlights of him, he's just making things so easy for his line mates. Like, just sets them up brilliantly. I just love the way that he controls the play from the middle of the ice. I think he's going to be a fantastic playmaking center at the National Hockey League level, and just the kind of guy who's your first guy out on the power play. And it's just a matter of, like, what's it going to be like at 5-on-5 right away? Like, I don't have much doubt that he's going to be an absolute stud at 5-on-5 eventually. It's just like, compared to the guys in this bracket, we talked about Michkov, there's going to be a wait, but when he gets there, it's going to be an immediate impact. The top 3 we discussed, all centermen, all guys who we see stepping in and making an immediate impact. I think it's great he's going to Boston College. Look, Cutter Gauthier is going back, 5th overall pick from last year. And not only that, Pilsy, Will Smith is bringing both of his line mates from the U.S. junior team program with him to Boston College. So are they just going to plop and have like a freshman line? They're just going to grab, place, and just let them do their thing? Because in that case, the chemistry is already going to be locked in. Now, will there also be a growing pain of having to go up against a new age category, playing against 22-year-olds, that whole thing? Yeah, sure, maybe. But when you see the talent, Will Smith and Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault, those were his 2 line mates there at the U.S. program, what they were able to accomplish is nothing short of exceptional. And there's always that late riser when it comes to the U.S. program. Last year, it was Cutter Gauthier. There was also Jake Sanderson in 2020. There was in 2021. Why am I'm missing on it right now?
McTavish?
No, McTavish wasn't at the program.
Oh, right. Yeah.
No, and it wasn't, it wasn't Beniers either. Well, it was probably Tyler Boucher, actually, if we're talking about the
no kidding,
where they were based on that. But you look at just this program consistently puts out great players. And with Will Smith, you just see him as, we almost have to do 2 profiles here, Pilsy, because last year, all my 5-star guys went to the Montreal Canadiens. And don't you just see him going to the Montreal Canadiens?
I really do. I mean, the average ranking for him is 5th. The Montreal Canadiens are picking at 5. They need centerman. He's a centerman. I've already kind of decided in my mind he's going there. But what's interesting about Will Smith, and I referenced David St. Louis already in the film room study. He did another great job on Will Smith here. And the one thing that he really notes is that Smith does this thing where he likes to pull the puck back towards his hip, almost like that's all he does. That's how he starts everything he does in the offensive zone, because that does a couple things. First off, you're pulling the puck away from defenders. So it's a way to protect the puck from defenders that are attacking you. They have to do a longer poke check, or they have to be quicker to try to get at you. But now you've got 3 options. Once you've pulled it back, you can either load up a wrister where you can have a lot of power onto that. You can fake a wrister and pass it off, or you can set up an inside and out deke, much like Michkov loves to do those dekes. So what he'll do is he'll pull that puck back, and then he'll wait for the defender to bite one way. So if the defender's like, oh crap, he's got a wrister, I'm going to set up for a block. Oh, that's easy. Now you're stationary and I'll just get around you. I'm not going to shoot that now. Or if he's like, oh, he's pulling it back because he's going to try a deke. Oh, well, now you've opened up and I can shoot it through you and use you as a screen. So doing this, and if you watch his highlights and knowing this, like, you can really pick up on it. Like, right away, once a defender has the gap on him, he resorts to that, pulling it back to his hip. And it's something that some players do sometimes, but he does it so often. He's mastered this. And I love St. Louis uses the quote from Bruce Lee: don't fear the man that's practiced 10,000 moves once. Fear the man that's practiced one move 10,000 times. Because Will Smith is an expert at this, and he's dominating kids in the junior level. Now, will NHL teams and defenders pick up on this and learn how to defend against it? Most likely. So he's going to have a couple more bags of tricks up his sleeve. But for now, it's a really good skill, and it really allows him to have creativity and use different options at any given time.
He was invited to USA World Junior Camp, but was cut. I think he'll be a huge part of that team this upcoming year, averaging over 2 points per game in his final year at the program. He also was named MVP at the World Under-18 Hockey Championships. Pilsy, is 20 points in 7 games good?
Yes.
Second in scoring, Gabe Perreault, his line mate, 18 points. Third in scoring, Ryan Leonard, his other line mate, was 17 points in scoring. They were plus 15, 15, and 16 respectively in 7 games at this tournament. They are a complete wagon of a line, but it's Will Smith that drives that line. And also, Gabe Perreault, you think about that. This is how long we've been doing this, Pilsy. The older brother of Gabe Perreault is also a guy who we profiled a couple of years ago in this whole thing as well. So with that, and the son of Yannick Perreault, former NHLer, longtime NHLer. So born in Quebec, but an American by like Jake Sanderson, right? Same type of thing there. However, when you're talking about Will Smith, you can't do so without mentioning what the scouts are saying about Will Smith. Craig Button says he's one of those players that's got a real subtle excellence to him, whereas Corey Pronman goes out and says he has tremendous puck skills, vision, and overall offensive creativity, and projects to be a major asset on an NHL power play. Pilsy, how long do you think the wait will be before Will Smith really bounces onto the scene in the NHL?
I think for sure he will go to Boston College, so there's 1 year. I wouldn't doubt it if we see him 2 years at college even. I just think, like, yes, there's a lot of great things, but there are some classic junior things he has to deal with. And I reference it, like him being so good at that. Like, guys are going to figure that out. Guys are going to get faster, bigger, stronger, etc. So he's going to have to work on some different things. But also, Ross, this is a player that plays with a lot of confidence. He loves having the puck on his stick, and he loves making moves to try to create offense. However, he does turn the puck over a fair share of times when he's trying to do those risky passes. And in junior, and when you're on the U.S. team, that's not a big deal because you got 4 other first rounders playing on a line with on the ice with you at any given time, so they can mop up any mistakes. But as he goes on and starts developing, he's going to need to figure out a way where he's not giving the puck away so often, even if it means, Ross, not pulling off a highlight reel play and sometimes just dump and chase or just getting the puck on net simply. Like, he's going to have to learn how to calculate the risk versus reward stuff a little bit better, and I think he will. So I would say 2 years at college, that's probably where I'd have, but who knows?
Yeah, no, that's exactly where I was going to go with it. Maybe even a year in the AHL, being that top line center, because he's not the kind of guy you don't want to limit his creativity with putting him on the wing. I don't think that's the play. We didn't even love that when Stützle was doing for too long, but where he's an 18-year-old, whereas if he does 2 years of college, then he's 20. Like, look at the path Logan Cooley's taking right now. I see it very similar, right? They're both the top line center from their age group at the program. He comes out, Logan Cooley has a great freshman year at Minnesota. Now, I think a part of him going back is the arena's bigger in college at Minnesota than it is in the NHL in Arizona. But I also think there's going to be some merit to him going back, and just the defensive side of the game. It's tough. Like, look at we talked about this as a Sens podcast with Norris and Stützle, but Will Smith, if he's going to come into the NHL and be a top 6 centerman, he's in the same division as some pretty elite NHL centermen. And it's going to be tough for him to really step in and be that contributing guy on both ends of the ice. So it's whether, if you're the Habs, right, you don't really have any desire to win next year. So are you okay with him being a -30, but still putting up 25 to 35 points? Maybe even 35 is probably more.
If he jumps to the NHL, you're talking about?
Not this year. We know he's going to, I'm talking about 1 year beyond this.
Okay.
I think it'd be better for him, better for his confidence. This Boston College team seems like it's going to be a wagon over the next couple of years. I think it'd be smart for him to do 2 years in college, see where he's at. But when he makes the jump, man, I'm convinced that he's going to be able to kind of twist in and put a few extra moves into his bag, like you were saying. So I'm not so worried about that. And like you said, he'll always have that 1A+ move that he can keep going back to and create offense, not only for himself, but this guy's going to create offense and make a lot of his line mates very rich wherever he goes.
The only thing with Will Smith, Ross, is I think for him to have success, he's going to need a guy that can, he's going to need a sniper on one side of his wing because he needs someone that he can set up. but I think he's also going to need a defensively responsible forward, a two-way guy, because as I was mentioning with him giving the puck away with risky passes, he's also not a defense first kind of minded guy. Now, most high skilled players in junior aren't, but there's a lot of times where he's leaving the zone way too early. He's, cherry picking outside the blue line a little bit more than he should be. He's out of position, trying to be open to be sprung for a breakaway. So it's things like that maybe you can't have all offense. So if we're talking about him going to the Habs, maybe him and Cole Caulfield on the same line together isn't great for your defensive game. So that's interesting. But I think there's so many things to like about Will Smith that the minor defensive and turnovers that he's doing are outweighed by his great offensive talent.
He put up the second most points at the national team development program all time, behind his line mate, Gabe Perreault. 127 points. Absolutely ridiculous. So let's see if he can get those physical advantages that he doesn't have right now. That's really where he needs to take the next step, is just getting stronger, bigger. And with that comes patience. So Will Smith comes in at number 5, rightfully so, on the Locked On Senators 2023 NHL Draft Rankings. All right, Pillsy, wrapping up today's show. Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I just quickly reference it, but I think it's something we should talk about, Ross. That Cole Caulfield contract is
very good.
That's a really good contract for the Habs. Wow.
So he signed for 8 years at $7.8 million per. Yeah, pretty good. No doubt. Now there's a little bit of risk coming off surgery, where he said that was more so precautionary. If they were going through like a playoff push, he probably would have battled through it. But man, he's a goal scoring machine. Like, he's a threat every time he's on the ice, maybe at both ends, but at the same time, like, you get paid to put up points, and that's exactly what Cole Caulfield does. And I mean, yeah, he was on pace for 40 plus goals this year. He's nasty. And that's a pretty good deal. They got him at under what Nick Suzuki's come in at Suzuki and Norris. I know are like pretty much identical contracts.
Norris a little more than Suzuki, yeah,
but like within tens of thousands.
Oh, it's very close. Yeah.
So to get him there, yeah, I hate it. Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, I hate it as well, honestly. Like Montreal, you start looking at the prospects they've drafted, and you start piecing those guys all over the roster, and it could be interesting. Now, they're obviously a few years behind the Sens, but when they catch up, those Ottawa-Montreal matchups could be absolutely amazing.
Can't wait. Now, the second leading scorer on the Habs this year had 38 points. So let's pump the brakes. They're ready to take the next step.
That's what. No. I didn't say that. That's what I'm saying. Like, they're years behind, but they're putting the right pieces in the right place.
Holy injuries, though, man. All of their top 5 scorers, nobody played over 70 games outside of Suzuki.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyways, that's enough Habs talk. Go check out Locked On Habs for more of that. But no, final thoughts from me, man. I can't believe the 180, and maybe not a 180. Let's call it a 45-degree turn that I've made on Patrick Waugh. I think that if the Sens decide to put a new coach in position this year, I think it should be Patrick Waugh.
Yeah. He's the favorite as far as I'm concerned, for sure.
Yeah. And hey, he's got experience interviewing for this job before, too.
Exactly. One more final thought. How do you feel about Mike Babcock reportedly going to the Columbus Blue Jackets? That's interesting, eh?
Yeah, thoughts and prayers to Johnny Gaudreau, who escaped Daryl Sutter in Calgary. They replaced that whole structure in Calgary 1 year later, and now he gets to deal with Mike Babcock.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. But again, just like Patrick Waugh, Ross, that is a Mike Babcock from what we're looking at.
A little less than Patrick Waugh. I think Babcock in 2019, where he was let go. November 2019. So like basically the COVID year.
So 4 years. So it'll be interesting to see how he turns around, and especially going from a market like Toronto to Columbus, very different approach. So
he gets results. He gets results, man.
Yep.
And that's a Columbus team that dealt with some key injuries throughout last season. Like Zach Werenski comes to mind first and foremost. And I think that Kekalainen and the GM there thinks that can be a playoff team next year with just a few tweaks. Now, I don't know if I go that far, but the pieces are there. They've definitely got a bright future ahead, and another year of Kent Johnson. And yeah, it will be very interesting to see Mike Babcock back behind an NHL bench. Reportedly, He wants to squeeze every dollar out of the Leafs first. So his contract officially ends June 30th.
I don't blame him. Yeah.
Expect that July 1st to come out. Yeah, he made $25 million from the Leafs after being fired.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy. All right. That's all for today's show. Please follow the show on Twitter at Sens Central, on Instagram, LockedOn.Senators. We'll be back with more tomorrow. But for today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan, and this has been the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.